So the way that we have the received story, God is, and by the way, we skip this part, Genesis 22:1, the story begins with, and God Nisa, right? How do you translate this word? Tested Abraham? Because that word can also be translated as tempted Abraham. But, God doesn't tempt anybody ever. And so, except when he does. But, so this is a test. And he's basically saying, I need you to go kill your son. And Abraham's like, yeah, no, I can do that. And he's going to do it. And he goes, now I see that you're willing to do it. Don't kill him. And so here's the sacrifice, the surrogate sacrifice, kill that. But God's willing. Are you willing to kill your own son to obey me? That's a high bar. And apparently Abraham jumped it in the received story that we have. That's the interesting thing that scholars debate, because is it possible that in the original version of this story, Abraham sacrificed Isaac?
And if we look, just continuing on the verses, right, we have these that say, yep, it stopped, the ram comes in. If we can for a moment, kind of just pull those from your mind. Pretend that Abraham binds Isaac, puts Isaac up on the altar. Verse 10, Abraham reaches the knife out. And if we don't have a moment where the pause, Abraham brings the knife down. And we go down to verse 15. This is the angel calls out a second time. But if we have the angel call out, because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will indeed bless you. I will make your offspring as numerous as the stars of heaven and as the sand that is on the seashore. Verse 18, because you have obeyed my voice. And then verse 19, so Abraham returned to his young men. And this is one of those passages that some people ask, are there two versions that have been brought together? Because if we take out the stopping moment and we take out the second call, because the stop never happened, so this is going to be the first time the angel speaks. If we get, because you have done this, that doesn't read like because you came up to the moment and then stopped.
Right.
You didn't withhold him. You did it.
Right. This is what some scholars believe to be the original version of this story. Now, there has to be some other things that we unpack later on, all the references to Isaac. Right. But the idea is that Abraham went up there and he sacrificed Isaac. And so if you take out this thing of, and stop, don't do this, now I know that you will do it, here's a ram instead, and you skip down to 15, you have done this. You have not withheld your son. And then now, because you've done this, I will bless you. I will indeed fulfill the promise that I made with you because you've obeyed my voice. And look at verse 19. Abraham returned to his young men. Who else returned to the young men?
Right. We don't have Isaac mentioned, and we talked about verbs earlier. This one is singular. So Abraham, and it's singular, Abraham returned to his young men, and then we have that they arose and they went together. Now there's no explicit reference to Isaac in that. You could argue, people argue that, it's just Isaac isn't mentioned because Abraham is the big figure here and we're focusing on the main character. But it talked about Isaac and Abraham going together, walking together before. So this is a change in this narrative.
Yeah, and the verb there for return, right? This is shuv, right? This is it's singular. And he returned.
It's singular.
It's not
Abraham,
and they returned. It's and he returned. So and Abraham returned unto his young men. So again, you can understand why scholars could conceive of the idea that the original version of this story was that Abraham went up there, sacrificed Isaac, and then was blessed. And that it is possible that later on, when child sacrifice, when all these verses were put in that said, you will redeem your son, they said, okay, well, we got to fix this, right? And so then they added, okay, stop. We now know that you won't do this. Here's a ram. And then the story later on about who is this other son, that was just changed. The name was changed to Isaac. So whoever the name of that son, that next son was that they had, they just changed that name to Isaac. So again, that's theory, that's hypothetical, but because we have the vestiges of this singular Abraham returning down the mountain, of this blessing that's based on because you have done this, some scholars think that maybe they went through with this, and then redactors went through and just changed the name to Isaac after they had. But you can see why the Bible is so much fun to study and why it's so interesting, because you have these laws that say human sacrifice is something that we do. God commanding, by the way, you will sacrifice your firstborn child. And later on, when child sacrifice is done away with, is forbidden and condemned, but you will redeem your firstborn. And you can see how this story in Genesis 22 may have been fixed as well.